All right, so, oops. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. First, I want to thank you all for joining us for the webinar for the tribal application process of the 2023 Biennium Oregon Behavioral Health Deflection Program. My name is Avery Sorensen, and I'm a grant liaison here at the Oregon Criminal Justice Commission. A couple of housekeeping things before we get started. First, you will notice I just started the recording. The reason we're recording this meeting is so that we can share it back with you all in case you want to use it as a reference, or if you want to share it with others in your team that were maybe not able to attend. We're also going to post it on CJC's YouTube channel and our CJC website. We have a BHD page specifically. So there's a couple of places where you'll be able to access this recording. I will go ahead and send out both the recording and today's slide deck after the presentation. It may not be today. I hope it's today. If it's not, it will be in the next few days. So everyone who's on this meeting, you'll get both the recording and the slide deck as reference. Lastly, I did just want to let you all know that we will have a Q&A portion of this webinar at the end. So we will wait until the end to take questions. In the meantime, the chat is open, so feel free to put in some questions as we're going through. And will be monitoring that and will read out those questions during the Q&A portion to get it in the recording so that it can hopefully help others who were not able to attend. During that Q&A portion, also just feel free to raise your hand or start speaking for questions. Okay, so here is just our brief schedule for today. I won't read it because you can read it, and then I did just want to mention that we will have that Q&A here at the end. Okay, so our first agenda item is that BHD overview. I will provide a brief overview of how deflection came about, what it is intended for, who is eligible to apply, what the eligible expenses are, in addition to both the availability and duration of this biennium's funding. We will leave off this section by going through both an application timeline and a timeline for the grant program as a whole. I do recognize that many of you have probably already heard this information through tribal consultation, but for the sake of this webinar being a reference, we will go through them again here, so bear with me. Okay, so program overview. The Oregon Behavioral Health Deflection Program, which I will reference both as Deflection and BHD, was established this year by House Bill 4002 to award grant funds to fund deflection programs. House Bill 5204 is the bill that appropriated funding to this grant program, and that totals about $2 million for 23-25. The BHD program is administered by the CJC under the oversight of the existing Impacts Grant Review Committee. One question that we have been receiving lately is how are impacts and BHD related, because several tribes in the state do have the impacts grant. So I just wanted to take some time to say that impacts and BHD are completely separate programs. The funding, the contracting, the project periods, they're all different. This is good because it means even if you don't have the impacts grant, you can still apply for the BHD grant. Really, the only connection legislatively between the two are who makes the award decisions for both, which is this last bullet point, the Impacts Grant Review Committee. Another difference is that Impacts is competitive, whereas the BHD program is formula, so you're not competing against other applicants for funds. Okay, so I am just going to read this definition of what a deflection program is as defined by the bill, because I think it will be pretty helpful. A deflection program is a collaborative program between law enforcement agencies and behavioral health entities that assist individuals who may have substance use disorder, another behavioral health disorder, or co-occurring disorders to create community-based pathways to treatment, recovery support services, housing, case management, or other services. Okay, so who is eligible? First, an applicant must be one of Oregon's 36 counties or one of the 9 federally recognized tribal governments in Oregon. So all federally recognized tribes in Oregon are eligible to apply. However, we are on the second part of the application. The first part was the official opt-in, opt-out for the 23-25 BHD funds. So everyone, all tribal governments in Oregon received that survey, which served as that official opt-in. So only those that opted in for this biennium's funding are now able to move forward with the application. So this second stage is the one that we're in now. So further eligibility, an applicant must be coordinated by or in consultation with a community mental health provider, a local mental health authority, or a federally recognized tribal government. So I do just want to pause here and highlight the bolding in this slide. What this means is that the 7 tribes that opted in automatically meet those first 2 eligibility points as tribal governments. So you're halfway there. Another eligibility criteria is that an applicant must coordinate the development and administration of the deflection program with all partners outlined in the bill, as well as prioritize the establishment of a program coordinator. Okay, so now let's look at what is an eligible expense for this grant program. The reason we're taking a look at this is you will be completing a proposed budget projection sheet as part of the application. So the bill outlines several eligible uses of BHD funds. I will go ahead and read a few of them here, but this is not an exhaustive list. You may use funds for the operation of a deflection program, which includes law enforcement employees, attorneys, behavioral health treatment workers, amidst others. You can also use funds to develop that behavioral health workforce and for capital construction of behavioral health treatment infrastructure. This last bullet point here, grants may also be awarded for the development of deflection programs, means that tribes can use BHD funds to work towards coordinating the development and administration of the deflection program with all partners outlined in the bill, as we mentioned, or as I mentioned on the previous slide. Funds can also be used to prioritize the establishment of a program coordinator, which, as we saw on the previous slide, is also a required component for eligibility. Okay, so let's move into the specific funding that is available for this biennium. On April 2nd of this year, the Impacts Grant Review Committee, the body responsible for this grant program, set aside 10% of the total funds for use by tribal governments this biennium. Statute required this body to make that set-aside determination, and as you see here, that equates to about $2,070,000 for use by tribes in this biennium. Okay, so moving into the tribal funding table itself, I'm going to give you just a second to take a look at this. So as mentioned earlier, part 1 of this process was a survey released to all tribal governments in Oregon that served as the official opt-in and opt-out for this biennium. Of the 9 tribes, 7 opted in. Here is therefore the GRC approved tribal funding table for those that opted in. I do want to explain a little bit on how we got to these numbers. Per statute, the minimum an applicant can receive is $150,000. So that was first applied to all of the opted-in tribes. And then, based on a majority consensus of tribes, the funding formula used beyond that $150,000 was based off of the Indian health user population data. This table here is important because this is the total up to amount that each tribe, opted-in tribe, can apply for this application cycle. I know I already said it, but I'm going to reiterate that this is a formula grant, not a competitive grant. So you are not competing against other applicants for these funds. So what you see here on the table for the tribe that you are applying for, that's the amount that you are eligible to receive. Okay, so last in this section, I want to go through a brief timeline for both the application and the project period. So on December 17th, you all should have received an email from me that released the solicitation and the application. Those are all due at 1 p.m. on January 28th. In February, the GRC will then convene to make award decisions on those applications. I do want to note that between that January 28th date and the to be set GRC meeting date in February, staff will likely be reaching out if we have any questions or clarifications on your applications in order to best present them to the GRC. So expect some fast and furious communication between that January 28th date and February. So after the GRC makes award decisions, there will be a 14-day protest period. Upon conclusion of that, we will begin the contracting process. Assuming your contract is signed, you will receive your disbursement of funds by March 31st. And then that leads us into the project period, which begins April 1st, 2025, and ends June 30th, 2026. Now, what happens if your contract is not signed before March 31st? Don't fear. Let's look at an example. So if, let's say, a tribe doesn't sign their contract until the end of May, because we do know that contracting process could take a little bit longer than this month that we have allotted for it. So let's say you sign your contract at the end of May. Well, as soon as we have a signed contract, we will disperse those funds, and then you'll be able to backdate any of your eligible expenses to April 1st of 2025. So that keeps our project period consistent across all grantees. Okay, we're getting closer. Let's go through the application requirements and then the resources that you can use for the application. Okay, I've said it before and I'm going to say it again. Applications are due at 1 p.m. on January 28th. Those must be submitted through CJC's grant management system, which is called SM Apply. That is what we are going to spend the second half of this webinar doing, is walking through that management system just to familiarize you all with it. It is also linked here. So when you get the slide deck, you're able to easily navigate there. Further, we do recommend that applicants review the grant administration guide because that is where you're going to find specific policies related to allowable uses of grant funds, as well as an outline of review processes and the like. It is also linked here in the slide. And then the last piece of application requirements is that an application must include a cover sheet, application questions, and a budget projection sheet. In our grant management system, which we'll walk through, those are each a required component. So they each show up as different tasks, and you won't be able to submit without completing each one. So it's not really something you have to remember. Okay, so now let's look at where you can find resources to help you apply. You can go to CJC's website and navigate to the BHD web page using this tiny yellow circle in the top right-hand side of your screen that says grants. It's a drop-down menu. Or you can click the link over on the left-hand side of your screen that will take you directly to this BHD web page, as you see in the screenshot. So a couple things that you'll want to focus on this webpage are highlighted in the lower right quadrant of your screen under current grant cycle information. What you'll want to view there are the solicitation, the grant administration guide, the tribal funding table, which we saw earlier, and the BHD FAQ. So for that FAQ, it does contain quite a lot of specifics to county programs because they have already gone through this process. So please be mindful of that as you read through. I do hope to add tribal specific questions to this FAQ once I learn from you all today what you have questions about. Okay, so I know this is tiny, I'm sorry, but this is the solicitation you all should have received via email. I want to take a deeper look into this because it's sort of your one-stop shop. The solicitation is where you will find the general requirements and eligibility criteria as we've gone through today, but then also attached are application questions in full, so everything we're going to see in our grant management system later, a sample budget projection sheet, and a sample grant agreement. Basically, in this one document, we're trying to contain all of the information that you might need for your application, either by way of listing it in the solicitation, attaching documents, or linking documents. For example, the funding table is linked here. So to reiterate, or to sum up, the solicitation will be your main point of reference for anything in this application. Okay, let's move into the application walkthrough. We're going to go through it step by step to familiarize you all with the application portal. Okay, so as I've mentioned before, but hopefully repetition is helping it stick, our application portal is called SM Apply. I have again pasted that link here at the top of your screen, so when you get the slide, you can easily navigate there. This link will take you directly to all of the CJC's grant programs. So you'll want to navigate to the one that says Oregon Behavioral Health Deflection Program Tribal Governments and click on it. Once you click on it, what you see on your screen now is what you will see. Whether or not you already have login credentials for SM Apply, you can click this highlighted Apply button and it will take you to the login page. Okay, so here's the login page where if you are not already logged in, you can simply log in. If you have applied for CJC grants in the past, it is likely you do have a login. So there is that forgot password if it's been a while. If you do not have login credentials, you are able to click the register in the top right-hand corner of this screen. If you do that, you're going to see this box appear. So it's a screenshot on the left-hand side of your screen. Pretty simple to fill out. You'll just fill it out and click Create an Account. And then it will immediately take you to what you're seeing on the right-hand side of your screen. This is a screenshot of the landing page. What you will want to do is make sure to click this Send Verification link. Which will send a link to your email. You'll need to follow the instructions there, and then you should be good to go. If you don't do this verification process, then you actually won't be able to submit your application. So it is important. So regardless if you have registered for the first time or simply logged in, this is the landing page that you will see. So I sort of want to orient you to it. Up here in the top right-hand corner, we have preview. So if you want to look at all of the application questions from the tasks, you're welcome to do so. If you click this instructions link, it will take you to some brief instructions, but most importantly, it contains a link to the solicitation. So always going back to that solicitation. Over here, we have our tasks. So there are only 3 tasks, like I mentioned earlier: cover sheet, application questions, and budget projection sheet. You will see that we have sort of like these status circles that are all blank right now. As you go through each task, they will slowly start to fill in with green. Once they're all filled in with green, then your submit button will become clickable. It's not going to become clickable until all tasks are complete. Okay, so the other thing I do want to show you that I think is helpful is on this landing page is where you can add a collaborator. If you click Add Collaborator, all you're going to need to do is put in an email address, select their type of access. So do you want them to be able to edit it or do you want them to only look at it? And then you can click Send Invite. You can add as many collaborators as you want. I've never seen an application max out. When you send the invite, the person that you invited will receive an email and they'll need to follow the instructions in the email, including setting up an account if they have not already. But once they're in the system, you'll see in this highlighted box what it'll look like. So Will has been successfully added as a collaborator and he can view and edit. Me, as the owner, I am able to change access by clicking the three dots on the right-hand side of his name. And I can click Change Access, which would change it immediately from view and edit to view, or vice versa. I can also remove him as a collaborator or make him the owner. So the owner of an application has certain abilities that the collaborators do not. So the owner is able to add collaborators and change collaborator access, and they are the only person who is able to click submit. So if I were to choose to make Will the owner, he immediately becomes the owner and gains all of those abilities, and I lose those abilities. So just a flag there. Okay, so let's jump into each of the three tasks now. I clicked on cover sheet, and this is what the top of my screen will look like. In each task, there will be this sort of status box. So the same thing that we saw on the landing page, the cover sheet and all of the tasks will slowly start to fill in with green as I go through them. And you can also submit from within any task once you're able to do so, once you've completed the tasks. If at any time you want to go back to the landing page, you can click this back to application. Okay, so the cover sheet, we'll start there. You are able to go in any order though with the tasks. So I'm just going to go in order. So we clicked on the cover sheet. We really tried to make this application as simple as possible. So hopefully you will see that as we walk through. The cover sheet will ask you to select which tribal government you are applying for using the drop-down menu. You'll notice there are only 7 because on this second phase of the application, we can only accept applications from those who opted in. And then for this primary applicant contact, who you should list is who you want CJC staff to reach out to with questions about the application or clarifications. And then if awarded, who you want us to reach out to with information about the grant. And then you'll also have a place to input a fiscal contact. This is really important because this is how we are going to pay you. So be mindful of that. And then this last question is just, would you like direct deposit? Yes or no? Totally fine if you click no. What that just means is that we will mail you a check and it could take a little bit longer. Then you will click either save and continue or mark as complete. If you save and continue, you don't have to have all the fields filled out, but you can save it, go on to other things, come back, and you won't lose your work. Or you can mark it as complete. You can only mark it as complete if all fields are completed. And I will show you later, once you mark something as complete, you are able to still edit it. You just have to go through a reopening process, which I will show you later. Okay, so I clicked save and continue editing, and you will see now that my little progress box shows that I have half completed the cover sheet. So it's slowly starting to fill in with green. So now I'm going to just click into application questions next. So the application questions are sort of the meat and potatoes of the application. It is getting at eligibility and your proposal for a deflection program. I do want to draw attention to the instructions that you'll see at the very beginning of the task and highlighted in yellow on this slide. And I'm actually just going to read it. The Oregon Criminal Justice Commission recognizes that applicants are at various stages of development with deflection programming. The evaluation of your application will not be adversely affected if you have not yet identified all the components requested in questions 2, 3, or 5. So we heard from many of you during the tribal consultation process that you are at varying stages of planning and development. So with that, we know and understand that you may not yet have all components in place to be ready to operate a deflection program. We also know that many of you will use the funds for purely planning activities, and I just wanted to say that that is okay. We expect that. So for the questions in this section, please just answer them to the best of your ability, and where you don't have something set up yet, you can even just explain your early ideas for planning to set those up. Also important, like I mentioned when we were in the timeline slide, is that there will be a little bit of time between when you submit your application and when it goes to the grant review committee. So if we have any clarifications or questions, we will reach out to you. I am also available throughout the application process should you want to reach out to me with questions. Okay. With all those caveats, let's turn to the first couple questions. Question 1, in 500 words or less, describe your plan or tentative plan to implement a deflection program, noting that adjustment requests allow this to fluctuate in the future. So you are not set in stone with your answers here, and we are looking for quality over quantity in these responses, as you'll see by the word limit. And then question 2 here is just if you have identified a program coordinator as specified in the bill, which is a required component, but it is okay right now to not have a program coordinator identified in your planning process. So if you click no, what you'll see is this, if you follow this arrow, you'll see this pop-up that just asks you to identify the agency that you think will employ your program coordinator. And if you're not there yet, explain the efforts that are underway to make this determination. And then if you select yes and you do have someone already identified, you will just provide us with their contact information, because we will contact them along with the primary applicant contact if awarded with any questions about your grant. Another important thing to note is that this position is an eligible use of deflection funds. Okay, so question 3 is a list of all the required and optional partners that are outlined in the bill. Because we understand that you are still developing your programs, you actually don't have to click next to any of these partners yet, but we would ask that you prioritize the establishment of the first 4, because those are the required partner organizations outlined in the bill. So in order to complete this section, all you'll do is you'll click next to the type of organization that you are partnered with, and then in the blank text box, you will write the name or names of those organizations or agencies. Okay, so then the final 2 questions are just to describe the coordination with program partners that have occurred to set up the jurisdiction's deflection program, and then at what time, at this time, when does your tribe estimate it will begin operating a deflection program? If you don't know, it's okay. Just put in TBD in both of these blank text box. So then I've marked this as complete. And so you'll see here on my little status bar that it is now green with a check mark. That means I have marked it as complete. So the last task is our budget projection sheet. The first clickable link that you'll see in the instructions is actually an Excel sheet download. It's an in-browser download, so it should pop up in the right-hand corner of your screen, but don't fear if you miss it. It will also be available in your downloads folder. The other link that is included in the instructions is that funding table that's also in the solicitation, that's also on our website, but this is the amount that you will be able to request up to, depending on your tribal government. So now let's look at that budget projection sheet itself. This is just a screenshot, so there is more. But this is where you will identify your proposed BHD budget. Please make sure that it matches like your proposed activities from your application. The narrative section is probably where that's going to be the most useful to draw those connections and then to also explain your requested line items. Many of the fields are locked in order to be able to do calculations for you. You'll break your requests up into separate categories depending on where the line items fall. Those categories are personnel, contractual services, housing and facilities, equipment, supplies, training and associated travel, and administrative costs. So you'll find in the highlighted yellow sort of descriptions of what types of things could be located in that category. Some things that you may learn from those highlighted boxes is like the difference between supplies and equipment. So for example, equipment are requests for non-expendable supplies that cost more than $5,000 or have a usable life of more than 2 years. And then everything else you would consider a supply would fall into supplies. Another example is the training and associated travel category. That is specifically for travel that is tied to a training. So if you were to request, gas to transport individuals to treatment centers, that would go into supplies as an expendable item. I do also want to note that when you scroll to the very bottom of this sheet, there is a flag for administrative costs to stay below 10%. You can ignore that because CJC accepts whatever your federally negotiated indirect rate is. Okay, so I've downloaded, saved, and completed my budget projection sheet. So it's now time to upload it into the portal. So all you'll do is click on this upload a file little box and it will bring up your folders and you'll select which file you need from your folders and it will upload it. It will only save in Excel file format though. So then I'm going to click mark as complete and you'll see here on the right hand side of your screen that my file is uploaded. Okay, so let's say that I marked it as complete, but I just realized that I uploaded the wrong file. So what I'll do is I'll go into whatever task I need, this case, the budget projection sheet, and I will click the 3 dots in the upper right-hand side of my screen and click edit. Now, if you were in cover sheet or application questions, that's all you'll need to do and you'll be able to edit the fields. However, for the budget projection sheet task, because you can only have one upload at a time, you'll need to scroll down and click on the 3 dots next to your upload and click delete. Then it should look as it did in the previous slide where you can just upload a file again. Okay, so now it is time to submit. You'll see here that I've already gone in and marked my cover sheet as complete. So now I have check marks and fully green circles next to all my tasks, which means I can now click submit as this button is now green. So you can either click review or submit from within any task or within your landing page. So I'm going to click review. And then what it will show you is just your tasks all on one page. You'll just scroll forever. You can download those so that you can print them out and take a look at them. You can spot an error and go back to application and unlock the task that you need to edit. And then once you're all ready, you can click submit your application. It will ask you again, and then you've done it. So you will see on this left-hand side the screen that shows that you have submitted your application. You will also get an email saying that you have submitted it. So you have basically 2 types of confirmations here. If you ever want to go back and look and see what you submitted, you can go to my applications at any time. And with that, I have put my contact information here. So if you have any questions about the application process as you're going through, feel free to reach out to me. But I will go ahead and stop sharing my screen now to open it up for questions. We have about 10 minutes, so pretty good on time. First, I will probably ask Will if there were any questions in the chat, and then we can just start taking questions beyond that. So I'm going to stop sharing now and pass it over to Will.
Thank you, Avery. I do not see any questions in the chat, so if you do have a question, please let us know.
But a couple more minutes. Or seconds, because seconds feel like minutes. Okay, well, if there aren't any questions, please do be looking for my email. I'll send it to everyone who was in attendance today, both the slide deck and this recording link. Feel free to share it with your team members, and then reach out to me. You can call me or email me. All my contact information is on that last slide. So if you have any questions, reach out, but thank you for attending.
Thank you.